Happy Halloween, you lot. Hope you're getting your spooky on and enjoying the occasion. Sadly, here in the UK, Halloween isn't celebrated as much as it is in America. You guys go absolutely ham, bologna and cheese with the spooks. But here you're lucky to get a Halloween-themed disco at a pub. Sure, trick-or-treating is a thing, but it's more of a case of most English households pretending that they're not home or they've gone to bed, which was my household. I can distinctly remember having a ghost face mask from Scream, which was able to pump blood over the face. It had some sort of like pump mechanism thing to, pump the blood around the mask. It was cool, although halfway through going trick-or-treating, it burst, and for the next few days, well, I had to go to school with a dyed face. Fun. But enough about that. Since the British like to live in misery on the 31st of October and almost all the time, I set the task every Halloween to scour the different channels on TV as a teenager, seeing if there were any horror films on. Normally it would be just full of mediocre rubbish, but on one fateful night, something magical happened. The BBC, of all places, was showing the original Dawn of the Dead. This is amazing, I thought. It was on BBC4, which normally caters to, well, the artsy type of programs and, documentaries, that sort of thing. So whoever let this air was an absolute legend. His name is probably John. I don't know. Basically, my love for anything zombie related was forged forever after that night, and it blew my brain out of the back of my skull. Okay, I know that was Shaun of the Dead, but I had to include it somewhere. I'm sorry. That was technically the first horror movie or zombie film I ever watched, so it's got to be in there somewhere. Well, what can I say about Dawn of the Dead that hasn't already been said to death 50 billion times? It's awesome. Yes, a little dated, of course. It was released 40 odd years ago, but it still gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling that I love to go back to and revisit now and again.
Blow all their asses off. Low-life bastards, blow all their low-life little Puerto Rican and nigger asses right off.
Did I say this film was dated? Dawn of the Dead takes place in the middle of a slowly growing zombie apocalypse, where a news team is slowly crumbling under the pressure as the chaos of the epidemic rises. I love this opening scene as it shows us how scary and stressful the situation is. Two TV executives, Stephen, or Flyboy, and Francine, make their escape by helicopter. They run into SWAT members Peter, played by the legend Ken Foree, and Roger, who all decide to seek refuge in a massive shopping mall, where they think it's safe. Yet, there's a last minute sale on at Penny's and the undead are all in. Time to snag a purse to put my freshly poured out intestines in. The group do make the mall their temporary home, trying to live as normally as possible. It's later revealed that Francine is pregnant, which adds to the tension of the situation. But no one stops her putting out her cigarette though, do they? Of course it was the 70s. Sadly, their sanctuary is destroyed by a vicious biker gang, which attracts hordes of zombies. I won't spoil the rest of the story just in case, well, the few minority of you who haven't seen it yet. Nobody had seen anything like this back in the late 70s, and George Romero practically invented an entire genre off of the back of Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, I guess Night of the Living Dead was the foundation, set up the rules and conventions, so to speak, but Dawn was the first to introduce the idea of a zombie apocalypse and do it in colour. Speaking of colour, I love the way the zombies and the gore looks. The blood is a vibrant red and the zombies have a darker blue. It's got that sort of 70s saturation that is just so distinct and delicious. It gives off this comic book look which I really dig. The effects were done by the legendary Tom Savini, and he really put his all into this film. What really helps with delivering realism on the zombies was Savini's time in Vietnam as a combat photographer. Seeing the horrible sights of war added to the bloody effects. Scenes with headshots are splattertastic and intestines flow like Niagara Falls. I especially loved the attention to detail with the designs of some of these undead. Yeah, some of the zombies look a bit phony. I mean, come on though. It's a late 70s independent film about a zombie apocalypse. Remember, this type of stuff was totally new and fresh for the time, so credit where it's due. The best looking undead to me are when Stephen and Roger eventually turn. Their makeup is absolutely incredible. Stephen shambles about with a crooked walk. It's very iconic looking. Where Roger has the awareness that he has turned and creeps upwards, it's just remarkable to look at. Character-wise, the main cast are actually very intelligent. They plan ahead to keep themselves safe, and they all work together very well. Stephen and Francine are the most inexperienced when it comes to firing guns or even surviving, but they gradually develop over the time to be stronger people. Francine at first is set up to be the damsel in distress, but quickly becomes a strong person. Fuck, this is like pre-Sigourney Weaver as well. They have this narrative arc which I find really cool. Talking about some of my favourite scenes, one of my favourites in particular is when the bikers get mauled by the zombies. More specifically, the biker in the blood pressure device where his arm gets pulled off. It's just so silly but gross. I love it. It's amazing. I also love the scenes where the group are enjoying the little things by going shopping and taking money from the bank. It's like a beautiful dream to go and just take what you want with no consequences, and it delivers that fantasy very, very well. Before he made American Werewolf in London and, a certain helicopter crash, John Landis also makes an appearance in this film, cameoing as a doctor in one of the various TV broadcasts in the film. And this performance is pretty good, actually, I have to admit. Dawn of the Dead isn't exactly a scary movie. Sure, there's gore, which for the time would have been shocking, and also for somebody who hasn't seen a horror film before, I can imagine that would be quite traumatic. There's definitely quite a bit of drama in this, but to me, there is a lot of comedic moments, especially with the silly mall music and the zombie encounters coming off as a goofy. But with the film setting of it being set in a shopping mall, it's kind of like a satire on consumerism at the time. And like I said before, I consider Dawn of the Dead to be a comic book movie that is very stylish. So, it plays hand in hand. But if you want a really serious and gory version without any fun, silly stuff, watch the Dario Argento cut. The music was composed by Italian prog rock band Goblin. I love the soundtrack. The tracks feel dramatic and synthy in all the best ways possible. It's just, chef's kiss. 3 chef's kisses. When Dawn of the Dead released, it was a massive success with moviegoers and being a huge inspiration for filmmakers, and is considered one of Romero's crowning achievements. Even Edgar Wright made one of the best homages to the zombie genre and one of my personal favourite films of all time, Shaun of the Dead, a horror comedy that pays homage to zombie movies. It's stylish, funny, and hella gory. Romero loved it so much he even casted Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright as zombies in Land of the Dead. Basically, without Romero, you wouldn't have Shaun of the Dead, The Walking Dead, or Resident Evil. Holy shit, even the man directed the adverts for Resident Evil 2 back in the 90s for America and Japan. Look how good these look. Look at them! Just look at them! Look at them! So yeah, Dawn of the Dead is absolutely fantastic. It's the first of its kind, and it managed to spawn a genre with millions of entries that have different takes on the zombie outbreak. Thank you, George Romero. You are sorely, sorely missed. So, if you are in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, go and hide in a shopping mall. But make sure to avoid anything to do with Black Friday, if you can help it.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons.